Zuri Okafor had $11 in her pocket when the black SUV pulled up. The driver didn't get out. The back window rolled down. A voice said her full name. Then it said the names of the 3 children she had fed from her cart for 4 years. Children she had never told a single soul about. And one of those names was wrong. The SUV idled at the corner of Bankhead and Ashby Street, right where Zuri parked her food cart 6 mornings a week. It was 6:41 a.m. The grill wasn't even hot yet. She had just unfolded the aluminum trays, stacked the foam containers, and set the squeeze bottles of pepper sauce in a row, her small, precise ritual before the morning rush. The sky was the color of wet cement. A bus groaned past on Ashby, half empty, its headlights still on. The back door of the SUV opened. A woman stepped out. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Zuri made in 3 months. Her heels clicked against the cracked asphalt like a clock ticking. She carried a leather portfolio under her arm, and when she reached the cart, she didn't look at the menu. She didn't glance at the handwritten prices or the bottles of pepper sauce. She looked at Zuri the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray. Ms. Okafor, my name is Constance Aldridge Baptiste. I'm the executive director of the Aldridge Family Trust. Zuri didn't respond. She reached for the propane knob and turned on the flat top. The metal ticked as it heated. Steam curled off the surface where yesterday's grease had settled. She had learned a long time ago that silence was cheaper than words. Constance didn't seem bothered by the silence. She continued as if she had rehearsed this moment, and she had. You've been feeding 3 children every morning, plates of rice, eggs, sometimes sausage, for approximately 4 years. Their names, as I was given them, are Kwame, Adaiza, and Folami. But she had something wrong. His name isn't Folami, Zuri said quietly, eyes still on the grill. It's Folu. Constance paused, opened the portfolio, wrote something down with a silver pen that caught the gray morning light. Who told you about those children? Zuri asked. She still hadn't looked up. Nobody told me, Miss Okafor. We've been watching you for 11 months. The words sat in the air like smoke from the grill. Watching. 11 months. Zuri's hand trembled against the spatula, and she set it down because she didn't want this woman to see it. She pressed her palm flat against the cold aluminum edge of the cart and steadied herself. 11 months meant someone had been standing across this street, sitting in a car, watching her bend down and hand foam plates to 3 children who had no one else in the world. What she didn't know yet was why. She was about to find out. Zuri Okafor was 43 years old. She had been running the cart, Zuri's plate, hand-painted sign in green and gold. No website, no social media, no Yelp page, since 2019. Before that, she had been a line cook at a Ghanaian restaurant on Campbellton Road called Auntie Efua's, where she worked 6 days a week for $13.50 an hour and ate her meals standing up by the dish pit. Before that, she had been married. Before that, she had been someone who believed life rewarded the people who worked hardest. 2 of those things were still true. Her husband, Emeka Okafor, had left in 2017. Not dramatically, not cruelly even. He simply told her one evening over leftover Connemara stew that he had accepted a job in Houston and that he was going alone. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask her to come. He left $4,200 in a Wells Fargo account and his mother's cast iron skillet. The skillet was 47 years old, black as coal, seasoned with decades of palm oil and patience. Zuri kept the skillet. She still cooked on it every morning. Sometimes she thought the food tasted better because of what that iron remembered. The children had appeared in the summer of 2020. She found them sitting on the steps of the abandoned laundromat 2 blocks from her cart, the one with the busted window and the faded sign that still read, "Suds and Shine, open 7 days." Kwame was 7, Adaz was 5, Folu was 3, and he wasn't wearing shoes. His feet were dusty. His toenails needed cutting. They didn't cry. They didn't beg. They just sat there in a row, oldest to youngest, watching the morning happen like it had nothing to do with them, like they were watching a television show about a world they didn't belong to. Zuri brought them plates. That first morning it was jollof rice with fried plantain. She didn't say much. She just set the foam containers on the step and stepped back. Kwame ate slowly, watching her the whole time, his eyes tracking her hands like he was memorizing her movements. Adazi ate with her fingers and licked the foam container clean. Folu fell asleep with a piece of plantain still in his fist, his head tilted sideways against his brother's arm. She came back the next day, and the next, and every day after that for 1,461 days. She never called anyone, not the city, not child services, not the police, not the church 3 blocks over that had a banner reading "All are welcome," but locked its doors at 5 p.m. and turned off the lights. She didn't call because she knew what would happen. She had been in the system herself. Age 9 to 17, 4 homes, 2 good, one where a woman named Mrs. Lucille Benson braided her hair every Sunday and taught her to cook groundnut soup, 2 that still showed up in her dreams. She knew the math. 3 black children, no parents, no paperwork, no birth certificates anyone could find. They'd be separated in 48 hours. Kwame in one county, Adazi in another. Folu, barely verbal, shy, gentle Folu, who pressed his face into Zuri's apron every morning like he was memorizing her scent. Somewhere no one would think to look for him. She had seen it happen before. She had lived it. She was not going to let it happen again. So she fed him. Every morning. Off a cart that netted her $47 to $63 a day after costs. She fed him before she fed herself. She fed him when the propane ran low and she had to cook on the cast iron skillet over a portable burner. She fed him in the rain, setting up a tarp she bought from the hardware store on Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard for $14. She fed him and told no one. Constance Aldridge Baptiste opened the portfolio wider. Inside was a photograph. Grainy, taken from across the street with a long lens, but unmistakable. Zuri, bending down, handing a foam plate to a small boy, the boy's hand reaching up, his fingers not quite closing round the edge. The timestamp in the bottom corner read 7/14/22, September 3rd, 2023. Zuri stared at it, her jaw tightened. "Who took that?" she asked. Her voice had changed. The softness was gone. Something protective had risen up from wherever she kept it. A member of our research team. "Why?" Constance closed the portfolio. She looked at Zuri for a long moment, the kind of look that takes measure of a person and comes back with more questions than answers. Then she said something that didn't make sense. "Because my father asked me to find the most generous person in Atlanta, and 17 people told us it was you." The Aldridge Family Trust was not a charity. It was a fortune. Raymond Aldridge Sr., a self-made builder worth $340 million when he died, left behind an unusual clause in his will. Each year, $2.4 million was to go not to an organization, not to a grant applicant, not to a board-run nonprofit, but to one ordinary person. Someone who gave when they had almost nothing. Someone who did it without being asked. Someone who did it without telling anyone. He called it the Bernice Fund, named after his late wife, who fed neighborhood children from her kitchen window for decades. Find that person, Raymond had written. Fund what they would build if they had the tools. Constance had spent 14 months searching, and one name kept surfacing: Zuri Okafor. Constance sent a researcher, a woman named Diane Mensah, 29, Spelman graduate, quiet and meticulous, the kind of person who noticed everything and said almost nothing. What Diane found over 11 months was a woman living in a $675 a month studio apartment on Joseph E. Boone Boulevard. A woman who spent between $310 and $460 of that on food. Diane documented everything. She also learned Zuri spent Friday afternoons reading library books to the children on the laundromat steps. Monday, January 8th, 2024. 3 plates of scrambled eggs, turkey sausage, and grits. Estimated cost, $4.70. Tuesday, January 9th. 3 plates of jollof rice with chicken. Estimated cost, $6.20. Wednesday, January 10th. 3 bowls of pepper soup with bread. Estimated cost, $5.10. Thursday, January 11th. 3 plates of fried yam with egg sauce. Estimated cost, $3.90. Friday, January 12th. 3 plates of waki with Cheeto and boiled eggs. Estimated cost, $5.40. Saturday, January 13th. 3 bowls of oatmeal with banana and honey. Estimated cost, $2.80. Sunday, January 14th. 3 plates of rice and stew with fried plantain. Estimated cost, $5.60. Every single day, 7 days a week, for 4 years. Total estimated cost across 1,461 days, $22,370. On a cart that earned her less than $23,000 a year. Zuri Okafor had given nearly half of everything she earned to 3 children who were not hers, in a city that had not noticed, for a duration that defied every rational explanation. But Diane found more than meals. She found that Zuri had been buying school supplies every August: notebooks, pencils, erasers, rulers, glue sticks, scissors, crayons, 48 packs, backpacks from the Walmart on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. She found receipts crumpled in a shoebox under Zuri's bed, organized by year with rubber bands. She found that Zuri had paid $127 for Kwame's glasses when she noticed him squinting at a street sign on Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard. She walked him to the Lens Crafters on Greenbrier Parkway and paid in cash. 3 20s and a handful of ones and coins she counted twice. She found that Zuri had taken Adaizi to a free dental clinic on Pryor Street 4 times in 1 year because the girl had a cavity that kept getting worse and the clinic could only do 1 procedure per visit. She found that every winter, Zuri bought 3 coats from the Goodwill on Metropolitan Parkway. She checked the zippers. She checked the stitching. She returned the ones with broken buttons and waited for better ones. And then Diane found the notebook. Zuri kept a composition notebook under her cart's register, the black and white marbled kind. $1.29 at Dollar General. It had 3 columns written in blue ballpoint pen. Kwame's shoe size, a daisy's reading level, Folu's words, Folu's words. The boy barely spoke. He communicated in gestures, a tug on Zuri's apron when he was hungry, a hand pressed flat against her hip when he was tired, a slow blink when something scared him. He drew constantly, with crayons on the back of Zuri's receipt paper, pictures of buildings and cars and clouds and always the same woman standing behind a cart. But Zuri had been tracking every word he said, every single one. The notebook had 147 entries over 4 years. Entry 1, Hot, July 2020. Entry 14, Zuri, October 2020. Entry 31, More Please, March 2021. Entry 47, Brother, August 2021. Entry 72, I'm Not Scared, December 2022. Entry 108, Can I Help You Cook, September 2023. Entry 133, Good Night, November 2023. Entry 147, Are You My Mama? January 2024. 147 words in 4 years, each one a miracle. Each one written down in blue ink by a woman who made $47 a day and never told anyone what she was doing. Constance read that list in the SUV on the way to Bankhead at 6:15 in the morning. She had to ask the driver to pull over. She sat on the side of Northside Drive for 4 minutes with the portfolio on her lap and her hand over her mouth. She had managed a $340 million trust for 6 years. She had reviewed grant applications from organizations operating in 14 countries. She had sat across from executives and senators and university presidents who gave presentations with slides and charts and projected outcomes. She had never seen anything like a composition notebook with 147 words in it. Not once in her entire career. Back at the cart, Zuri hadn't moved. She was grilling onions now. The smell drifted across the sidewalk. Sweet, sharp, golden. The kind of smell that made people slow down without knowing why. I don't want money, Zuri said before Constance could continue. What do you want? Zuri turned the onions with the edge of the spatula. The oil popped and hissed. A piece of onion slipped off the grill and she caught it with her fingers, placed it back without flinching. Her hands were used to heat. I want them to stay together. I want them to be safe. I want Kwame to finish school. He's smart. That boy reads everything. Everything. Even the nutrition labels on the back of cereal boxes. I want Adaz to see a real dentist, not a free clinic where they can only do one thing at a time. I want Folu to talk to somebody who can help him. A professional. Somebody who knows what they're doing. Not me guessing. She paused. The onion sizzled. The morning traffic on Bankhead was picking up. A truck rattled past. And I want to keep feeding them. That's all. Constance stared at her. In 6 years of running the Bernice Fund selection process, 6 years, 4 previous recipients, millions of dollars, she had never heard someone ask for nothing for themselves. Not once. Every other recipient, no matter how generous or humble, had eventually mentioned something. A new roof, a car that didn't break down, a vacation they hadn't taken in years. Zuri Okafor asked for children's glasses, a dentist, a speech therapist, and permission to keep doing what she had been doing for free. Constance opened the portfolio one more time. Inside was a single sheet of paper with the trust's letterhead, Ms. Okafor, the Aldridge Family Trust would like to award you a grant of $2.4 million over 3 years. The funds are unrestricted. You may use them in any way you see fit. Zuri's hand stopped moving. The spatula hovered above the grill. Onions sizzled and began to brown at the edges, and for the first time that morning, she didn't fix them. She didn't speak for 11 seconds. Constance counted. She had learned in this work that silence was its own language, and she did not interrupt it. Then Zuri said very quietly, "I don't understand." "You don't have to. Not yet." "Why me?" Constance reached into the portfolio and pulled out the yellow legal pad, the original, preserved in a clear plastic sleeve. Raymond Aldridge's handwriting slanted and deliberate, the ink faded but legible. She read it aloud. "Find someone who gives when they have almost nothing. Find someone who does it without being asked. Find someone who does it without telling anyone." She looked up from the page. 17 people told us your name, Ms. Okafor, and not one of them knew the full story. That's how we knew. The first thing Zuri did with the money was nothing. For 3 weeks she did not touch it. She kept running the cart. She kept feeding the children. She kept sleeping in the studio on Joseph E. Boone Boulevard, on the same twin mattress she had been sleeping on for 5 years. The only difference was that she now had a bank account with a number in it that made her nauseous every time she checked it on her phone. She checked it 4 times. Each time she put the phone down and went back to chopping onions. Then Kwame got sick. A fever that wouldn't break, 103.4 on a Tuesday night. Zuri carried him, all 78 pounds of him now. He was 11, his legs dangling against her hips. 14 blocks to Grady Memorial, because the bus had stopped running and she couldn't afford a cab. They waited 4 hours in the emergency room, Kwame's head on her lap. A fluorescent light buzzing above them, the smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner and vending machine coffee. A resident finally saw him at 2:17 a.m. strep throat. Antibiotics. Discharged. On the walk back, Kwame half asleep against her shoulder, his glasses crooked, his breath still hot with fever. Zuri made her first decision. She called Constance the next morning at 7:02 a.m. "I need a house," she said. "No greeting, no small talk. 3 bedrooms, close to a school, close to a clinic, and I need a lawyer." "For what?" "I want to adopt them." The house was on Sells Avenue in West End. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a front porch with a railing that needed paint, and a magnolia tree in the yard that dropped white petals across the grass every spring. $187,000. Zuri paid cash and had the locks changed the same day. The adoption process took 9 months. Constance connected her with Yolanda Freeman Clark, a family law attorney at a firm on Peachtree Street, who had handled 340 adoptions in her 22-year career. Yolanda took the case pro bono when she read the composition notebook. She read it twice, sitting at her desk, and then she called Constance and said, "I'll do it. Don't ask me about fees." There were complications. There are always complications when the system meets a situation it wasn't designed for. Background checks, home studies, parenting evaluations. A caseworker named Mr. Dennis Asamoah, who visited the house on Sells Avenue 4 times and left each time shaking his head, not in disapproval, but in disbelief. "She's been parenting them for 4 years, he told Yolanda. She just didn't have the paperwork. Kwame Okafor, Adais Okafor, Folu Okafor. The paperwork was finalized on November 14, 2024, at the Fulton County Courthouse. Judge Bernard Atchison presiding. Courtroom 4B 10:15 a.m. Folu, who was now 7, stood in the courtroom in a white button-down shirt that Zuri had ironed that morning on the kitchen counter because she didn't own an ironing board yet. When the judge asked if he understood what was happening, Folu looked at Zuri, not at the judge, not at the lawyer, not at Constance, who was sitting in the back row in the same charcoal suit she had worn to the food cart. He looked at Zuri. "She's my mama," he said, clear as a bell, no hesitation, no stammer. It was the 148th word in the notebook. Constance, sitting in the back row, pressed her knuckles against her teeth and looked at the ceiling. Yolanda Freeman Clark, who had been a lawyer for 22 years and had seen everything, took off her glasses and set them on the table because she could not see through them anymore. But Zuri wasn't finished. She used $340,000 to open a commercial kitchen on Ashby Street, 3 blocks from where the cart had stood for 5 years. She found the space herself. An old barber shop that had been empty for 2 years, 1,800 square feet, grease-stained ceiling, cracked tile. She had it gutted, replumbed, rewired, painted. She named it Bernice's table, not Zuri's, Bernice's. When Constance asked why, Zuri said, "Because your mother and I were doing the same thing. She just had a kitchen window and I had a cart." Constance did not speak for a long time after that. She later told the trust's board that it was the single finest thing anyone had ever said to her. Bernice's table served 2 functions. From 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., it was a restaurant, Ghanaian and Southern, Zuri's fusion, the food she had perfected over 24 years of cooking, jollof rice with collard greens, kelaweel with honey butter, pepper soup with cornbread, wakia with black-eyed peas and smoked turkey. The menu was handwritten on a chalkboard in Zuri's careful block letters, and on the first day, there was a line around the block. 47 people served before noon. From 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., the kitchen became something else entirely. A free meal program for children in the neighborhood. No paperwork, no qualifications, no income verification, no questions asked. Any child who walked through the door got fed, period. Zuri hired 5 people from the neighborhood to run it. 3 of them were women who had been in the foster system. One of them was a man named Desmond Quarshie, 34, who had been sleeping in his car in the parking lot of a Kroger on Howell Mill Road for 7 months before Zuri offered him a prep cook position. She paid them $19 an hour. Benefits, paid time off. She gave Desmond a 2-week advance on his first paycheck so he could put down a deposit on a room. She also set aside $200,000 in an education trust managed by Yolanda Freeman Clark for Kwame, Adaizi, and Folu, not to be touched until they turned 18, each child's name on the account, each child's future protected by the same woman who had once fed them from a food cart with $11 in her pocket. 2 years later, November 2026, Bernice's table had served 94,000 free meals to children in the West End. Not estimated, counted. Zuri kept a log. She used the same kind of composition notebook, the same blue ballpoint pen. The restaurant side was profitable, not wildly, but enough. Enough to cover rent, payroll, food costs, and the afternoon program without dipping further into the grant. Enough to keep the doors open and the kitchen hot. Constance had told the story to the Trust's board at their annual meeting. The board had told it to a journalist at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution named Priya Ose-Mensah, who had spent 3 weeks reporting it. She interviewed Zuri twice, Constance once, Yolanda once, Diane Mensah once, and 11 neighbors on Bankhead and Ashby who remembered the cart. The article ran on a Sunday. It was 4,200 words long. By Monday afternoon, it had been read 2.3 million times. Zuri didn't read it. She was in the kitchen at Bernice's table, prepping garlic for the next day's groundnut stew, her hands stained and fragrant, Folu sitting at a corner table drawing a building with 17 floors. But the ripple had already started. Kwame Okafor, now 13, was in the 7th grade at Booker T. Washington Academy. He had a 3.8 GPA. He had read 114 books in the past year. Zuri knew because he kept a list taped to his bedroom wall, and she counted them one night after he fell asleep. His favorite was the autobiography of Malcolm X. He told Zuri he wanted to be a lawyer. Not the kind that makes money, he said. The kind that gets kids out of places they shouldn't be in. She didn't say anything. She just pulled him close and held on. A day's 11 had gotten her braces off. She smiled constantly now, wide, unguarded, the kind of smile that made strangers smile back on the bus. She was learning to cook alongside Zuri in the kitchen every Saturday morning. Her specialty was kelewele. She used too much ginger and not enough salt. It was perfect. Folu was 9. He still didn't talk much, but he talked enough. He had been seeing Dr. Amara Boateng, a child psychologist on Cascade Road, twice a week for 2 years. He drew constantly, detailed, intricate drawings of buildings, bridges, machines, engines, structures that looked like they could actually be built. Dr. Boateng told Zuri that Folu wasn't delayed, he wasn't damaged, he was processing. He had been processing since he was 3 years old, sitting on those laundromat steps with no shoes. And he was doing it through images, because the world had not given him words early enough. He's brilliant, Dr. Boateng said. He just builds his thoughts differently than most people. Folu's favorite thing to draw was the food cart. Over and over and over. The same cart, the same woman behind it, the same 3 small figures sitting on the steps across the street. Sometimes he added details. A squeeze bottle of pepper sauce, a stack of foam containers, a hand reaching down with a plate. In every single drawing, the woman was smiling. There is a photograph on the wall of Bernice's table. It hangs near the kitchen door, just above the light switch, where Zuri passes it 30 times a day. It is the grainy surveillance photo from September 2023. Zuri bending down, a foam plate in her hand, a small boy reaching up to take it, the timestamp in the bottom corner, 7/14/22. Next to it, in a simple black frame, is the yellow legal pad page. Raymond Aldridge's handwriting, slanted and faded. Find someone who gives when they have almost nothing. Below both frames, taped to the wall in a child's handwriting, crooked letters, green crayon, the kind of penmanship that only a 7-year-old can produce, is a single sentence. Are you my mama? Zuri never moved it. She never framed it. She left it exactly as Folu had written it, taped with a single piece of Scotch tape that was starting to curl at the edges. She could have preserved it. She could have laminated it. But she left it raw, because the question was raw, and the answer had been earned. Zuri Okafor was a woman who made $47 a day and decided that 3 children she did not know mattered more than the money she did not have. She made that decision once, then repeated it 1,461 times. And over those mornings, what began as 3 plates of food became something no money could manufacture and no institution could design. It became a family. When Constance said she had been watching Zuri for 11 months, would you have trusted her or sent her away to protect the children? Tell me in the comments. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it.